Good evening, ma'am. Aaron Ariston, ma'am. Our topic for today's, ma'am, is for assumption as an explanation of delinquents. See by a show and Mackay. The collapse, number one, is the collapse of the community-based control, and people living in these disadvantaged neighborhoods are responding naturally to environment condition. Because of the collapse of the community, ma'am, or like for another mga lugar, ma'am, nga na-collapse, like what you said, ma'am, sa Pupi, kulang is not enough of the what we call this, kulang, it's enough to enforce a law, ma'am, or the responding to the environment because of the collapse of the environment condition, ma'am, of the environment because of the government. And secondly, ma'am, the rapid growth of immigration in urban disadvantaged neighborhoods. As I can read, ma'am, because of there's many people living in this area, the people is pag nagabalhin ng tao. There's many living in this environment. Hindi na sila ganahan mamuyok itungod of the delinquency or behavior of an individual. Secondly, ma'am, the business located closely to the disadvantaged neighborhood that are influenced by the ecological approach of competition and dominance. Pasabot po ni ma'am is like what you said before, ma'am, katong pag-collapse sa community nga wala na there's no good enforce a law, like okay lang sila hang na baril because of the, then also, ma'am, is wala mag-invest sa isa ka lugar tungod sa mga delinquency or mga individual person nga kulang sa pag-enforce sa law, nga walay kahadlok sa law, ma'am, nga ang mga business wala na mag-interest of, wala na sila interest nga makipag negosyo sa lain sa lugar tungod of the delinquents of an individual. And lastly, ma'am, the disadvantage of urban neighborhoods lead to the development of criminal values that replace normal society and values. Like what I understand for my studies, ma'am, the disadvantage of the urban neighborhoods will lead to the criminality, ma'am, because of the environment, lack of supervision, lack of to enforce a law, and also, ma'am, this is a 5-figure social disorganization theory and delinquency, ma'am. First is social disorganization. These are social disorganization because of overcrowding, poverty, and broken homes and or broken family. Because of that, ma'am, the youth or juvenile commit delinquency, ma'am. And second is breakdown in informal social controls, ma'am. Because a breakdown of in informal social controls, ma'am, is it means like a lack of supervision or kulang sa pag-guide sa mga juveniles, ma'am, because of the broken homes, broken family, ma'am. And also number 3, ma'am, is pass to the gangs and delinquency, because of the juveniles, lack of supervision or super parental guidance, and lack of broken homes, the youth or juveniles, ma'am, is go to the gang and and commit a minor offense like and delinquency, ma'am, and also form development crime subcultures. Also, ma'am, a youth, ma'am, is they develop of a new set values, opposite of new values and norms, ma'am. The opposite of conventional values and norms. And also, ma'am, is a number 5, cultural transmission. Cultural transmission is a criminal values and norms, ma'am, to pass to another juvenile delinquency to an old gangs, ma'am, and new gangs members to the new gang members, ma'am. They commit a minor offense or minor delinquency of juvenile because of the 4 elements of disorganization, theory, and delinquency. Thank you, ma'am.
Good day, everyone. My name is Samantha Barrientos, and my topic is all about social disorganization theory and delinquency. So, social disorganization theory suggests that the person's residential location is more significant than the person's characteristics when predicting criminal activity, and the juveniles living in these areas acquire criminality by the culture's approval within the disadvantaged urban neighborhoods. So this theory states that the communities with high levels of social disorganizations or weakened social ties are more likely to have a higher rates of crime and delinquency. Edwin Sutherland. He conceptualized the differential association or the DAT, proposing that through interaction with others, individuals learn the values, attitude, techniques, and motives for criminal behavior. So Sutherland's theory states that criminal behavior is learned through association with others. The theory suggests that people are more likely to commit crimes if they associate with people who commit crimes.
Good day to all. I'm Villamonte John Gerald T. at the Holy Cross of Davao College, BS Spring, and my report is Daniel Glazer's Differential Identification Theory. Glazer proposed a revision of DAT which he called as the Differential Identification Theory. It attempts to focus greater attention on the individual factors that intervene between environment contacts and criminal behavior. This theory explains that people can learn criminal behavior by identifying with others, even if they don't have direct contact with them. The focus of this theory is a person's own feelings and choices influence who they admire and want to imitate. Example, a teenager might see a criminal on TV or in their neighborhood and think they're powerful, deciding to act like them, even if they've never met. The main idea of this theory is instead of just learning from close groups like friends or family, someone can look up to a criminal figure like a gang leader or a character in the media and try to copy their behavior. Glazer's idea shows that role models, not just close relationship, can influence someone to commit a crime. Let's proceed to the next. Robert L. Bergs and Robert L. Akers. Bergs and Akers developed the differential association reinforcement theory. They re-evaluate Sutherland's theory about differential association using behaviorism. They incorporated the psychological principle of operant conditioning and maintained that even non-social effects can reinforce criminal behavior. Incorporating behaviorism. Learning criminal behavior is not only due to interaction with others, but also influenced by reward and punishment. Operant conditioning. Operant conditioning have 2 reinforcement. The first is positive reinforcement. Reward from criminal behavior. Example, money from theft. The second one is negative reinforcement. Avoidance of punishment or problems. Example, escaping from bad situation. Punishment decreases the likelihood of repeating the crime. Effect of social and non-social factors. It's not just social interaction that drives crime, but also personal experience or environmental situation that influence behavior. Example, a person may engage in shoplifting because of the satisfaction they feel, the reward, and because they avoid getting caught, escaping from punishment. This theory demonstrates that criminal behavior is learned through social interaction and is influenced by rewards and punishment, combining psychology and criminology.
Hi, my name is Arjandip Alpad, and I am the one who was assigned to report the 7 principles that illustrate the process wherein learning takes place, a formulation of Sutherland's principle. And first, we have criminal behavior in learned through operant conditioning. It means na ang kriminal na gawain ay natutunan sa pamamagitan ng operant conditioning. Ito ay ang pag-uugali na na-impluwensya ng gantimpala o parusa. Number 2, we have the learning occurs through the non-social and social interaction. Ito rin daw ay ang pagkatuto ay nangyayari sa pamamagitan ng social at disosyal na interaksyon. Ito ay tulad na hindi lamang tao ang nagkakaapekto sa pagkatuto, pati ang kapaligiran nito o personal na karanasan ay mahalaga. Number 3, we have the intimate groups are key sources of reinforcement. Pangatlo ay ang dalas na pag-uugali ay nakasalalay sa reinforcers. Kapag ang isang kilos ay may positibong resulta, may madalas itong inuulit. Pang-apat, number 4, learning includes techniques, attitudes, and responses. Ito daw ay ang malalapit na grupo ay pangunahing pinagmumulan ng reinforcement, kundi ang pamilya, kaibigan, at iba pang personal na relasyon. Ang mga pangunahing nag-iimpluwensya sa pagkatuto ng kriminal na gawain. Pang-5 or 5, frequency of behaviors depends on reinforcers. Ito daw ay ang pagkatuto ay kasama ang teknik sa loobin at tugon. Ang mga proseso ng pagkatuto ay hindi lamang tumutukoy sa ano ang gagawin, kundi paano, pati ang dahilan o motibo nito. And we have 6, criminal behavior depends on norms and reinforcement. Ang kriminal na gawain ay nakadepende sa mga normatibong gawain at reinforcement. Ito daw ay ang kriminal na kilos ay natututo at tumatagal batay sa mga pamantayan ng grupo at ang mga gantimpala o parusa na uugnay dito. And lastly, we have 7, strength of behavior depends on reinforcement. Ito daw ay ang lakas na pag-uugali ay nakadepende sa reinforcement. Mas malakas o mas paulit-ulit ang isang pag-uugali kapag ito ay patuloy na pinapalakas o pinapalawig ng mga gantimpala o positibong resulta. And that is the 7 principles that illustrate the process wherein learning takes place. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Artusilia Giovanna Gisette, and in my topic I will discuss the 4 main methods of behavior modification. They are commonly used in the fields of education, psychology, and even in everyday life to encourage good behavior and correct bad behavior. They are the positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. So, let's start with positive reinforcement. So, according to the book, positive reinforcement can also be provided when a behavior yields an increase in status, money, awards, or pleasant feelings. So, meaning it refers to the giving of a reward to reinforce or encourage the repetition of good behavior. The word positive here means adding something pleasant. So, for example, when a student receives a high grade, he is given medal or sticker as a compliment. So, other example is an employee who completes a project is given a bonus. So, what is the effect of positive reinforcement? So, the effect is this becomes a motivation for the person to repeat the positive behavior because they receive a reward. So, take note, the reward must have value for the person because if they do not value it, it may not be effective. So next is negative reinforcement. So negative reinforcement can increase the likelihood that a behavior will be repeated if the act allows the individual to escape or avoid adverse or unpleasant stimuli. So meaning it refers to the removal of an unpleasant things as a reward for doing the right thing. It is not a punishment, but rather it aims to make the person more comfortable. So, for example, when a child finishes his homework early, his duty of washing the dishes is removed. The second example is that in the office, if an employee always comes to work early, his overtime is reduced. So the effect is, it is comforting, so the person is attracted to repeat the correct behavior to avoid the undesirable situation. So take note, the goal is to focus on removing stress or inconvenience, not on punishment. So the third one is positive punishment. So positive punishment serves to increase the probability of a particular behavior being repeated. So for me, it is the addition of an undesirable element to stop or reduce misbehavior. Positive here means adding an element. So for example is when a child misbehave, he is given a extra chores. So the other example here is when an employee is consistent late, he is given a fine or reprimand. So the effect of positive punishment is to aims to deter misbehavior by providing an unpleasant experience. So take note, this should be used with caution as it can cause negative effects such as fear or anger if not implemented properly. So the last one is negative punishment. So negative punishment serves to decrease the probability of a particular behavior being repeated. So for me, negative punishment is to remove something desirable as a punishment for misbehavior. So for example, when a child screams or gets angry, his toy or playtime is taken away. So the second example is when a student fails to submit a project, the privilege of participating in a field trip is removed. So what is the effect of negative punishment? It aims to correct behavior by removing something valuable to the person.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dexter James Lindayan, and welcome to this presentation on the neutralization theory developed by David Matza and Gershom Sykes in 1957. This criminological theory explains how individuals rationalize and justify deviant behavior. So Sykes and Matza's work built upon Sutherland's differential association theory, which posits that criminal behavior is learned through interaction with others. Neutralization theory expands on this concept by exploring how individuals neutralize conventional values, facilitating deviant behavior. The neutralization theory by Sykes and Matza offers valuable insights into complex process of criminalization. Understanding these techniques can inform crime prevention strategies, rehabilitation programs, and social policies aimed at reducing deviance.
Faustino O. Asilom I am one of the reporter of Group 6 and I'll be reporting the slide 15 talks about David Matza. So, Matza further developed the neutralization theory by incorporating it into the concept of drift, which called as the drift theory, from his research work entitled Delinquency and Drift Theory in 1964. So, ang drift theory daw nag-explain nga taas og chances na maging deviant ang usa ka tao tungod sa influence sa society, especially kung ang iyang environment kay dili maayo. Mo nang niingon si Matza nga ang tao daw nga gatuman sa law kay walay pinagkaiba sa wala gatuman sa law. Kay ang mga people daw nga gabuhat og bad things kay na-influence ka daw ato na time. That's why niingon siya nga situational ang pagka-deviance. Pero nara na sa free will sa tao kung magpadala ba siya sa social norms or dili. So, the next one is 5 circumstances of Matza. So, the first one is cognizance. Describe to what extent the juvenile, when we say juvenile, di ba sabi ni ma'am na minor, delinquent understands his committed injustice as such as it talks about nga ma-understand og ma-recognize ang ilang wrongdoing, makabalo sila kung nag-violate sila sa law. Next one is consistency. Describes whether the juvenile delinquent feels treated in the same way as other offenders. Consistency explains that fairly and equally, walay bias. Bali kung unsay punishment sa lain offender nga same sa iyang sala, mosad punishment niya. So the third one is competence, related to those who judge the behavior of the delinquents. Balik ka na yung explanation na ni kay balik kung ma-feel daw sa bata nga na yung experience or nadyo'y alamag ang nag-judge sa iya, tumanon daw niya ang mga proseso o musunod kung unsay giingon siya ha. Pero once ma-feel sa bata or sa minor na wala na experience or wala kabalo sa buhaton, mag-cause pa nun yung kawala og salig or makasuko at kanang mas lisod kay kanang dili sila mo cooperate. So the fourth one is commensurability. Describes whether at all the punishment is perceived as appropriate. Ang main point ani kay kung unsa ka serious og dili kayo siya ang ana ka serious nga offense, dapat mag-match sa siyang consequences or punishment. For an example, mangawat ra siya unya ang iyang punishment kay death penalty tapos dili siya mag-match sa iyang sala or sa iyang offense. So the last one is comparison. Refers to legal provisions aimed at juvenile delinquents which from the point of view of the juveniles present themselves as unfair. So ang juvenile daw kay maka-feel og unfair if atagan sila og harsher consequences compared sa isa ka adult nga same og sala nga iyang gibuhat. Bale magkanang tawagan na ang juvenile daw kay kana or minor nga bata kay kana maka-feel og unfair kun tay ako nya man nay bata nga nakasala nya mas bugat ang iyang punishment nya pareha kami gibuhat so diha maka-feel sila og unfair. So my next report is all about Ivan Nye. Nye in 1958 did not only elaborate a social control theory of delinquency but specified ways to operationalize measure control mechanisms and relate them to self-reports of delinquent behavior. So sinya kay nasa siya 3 types of kanang controls. Tapos gamayng facts about Nye. He also formulated a theory after interviewing 780 young people in Washington state. He focused on the family as a source of control. So the first control of Nye is the direct control. Parents directly influence behavior by setting rules, enforcing punishments, or giving rewards. For an example, kanang bata nga kanang nilabag sa curfew niya, ngatagan siya og gi-grounded siya, mo na direct control nang ingana. Next one is indirect control. Even when parents are present, children may behave because they don't want to disappoint their parents or face their disapproval. This is indirect control because the influence works through the youth's emotional connection to their parents. So sabotable na kay siya nga kanang isa ka bata nga kanang masking wala siya giingnan sa iyang mama or kanang masking wala ang the parents are not around kay kinabuhat kay po niya ang tama ug likayan niya mali. So ingana ang indirect control. Next one, the last one is the internal control. Refers to a person's ability to regulate their behavior based on their conscience, values, or moral beliefs. For an example, If a young person looks up to and care about law-abiding parents, teachers, or friends, they are less likely to engage in criminal behavior. Their internal controls develop through this affection and admiration, guiding them to make ethical choices.
The two containment aspects by reckless are: first, inner containment. It means having confidence, self-worth, and a strong identity. People with a positive sense of self are more likely to make good choices and resist negative influence because they feel capable, responsible, and aligned with their values. For example, teenagers who feel proud of their achievements and have clear personal goals are likely to be swayed by peer pressure to engage in delinquent activities. Second, outer containment. Supervision ensures that someone is being monitored and guided by authority figures like parents, teachers, or community leaders. For example, a child whose parents regularly check their activities is likely to engage in delinquency. Thank you.
So, my last report is all about Travis Hershey. Hershey's control theory, which he developed in 1969, is also known bonding theory. Travis Hershey's control theory says people who avoid crime because of strong social bonds with family, friends, and society. These bonds make them care about following rules, and weak bonds can lead to deviant behavior. So, Travis Hershey's control theory or kanang bond theory kay suggests that people follow rules and avoid crime because of their strong social bonds with others. So, kanang dili sila mabot og crime kay tungod sa strong social bonds nila. That's all. Thank you.